The moment the director yells, "Cut," the golden facade shatters, making way for brutal psychological warfare. For decades, the studio machine shielded powerful actors who weaponized their status, inflicting severe on-set trauma under the guise of artistic genius. This dossier of Hollywood scandals exposes the monstrous reality buried beneath those billion-dollar box office hits. You are watching Hollywood Stars and Scars, where we uncover the horrifying price of cinematic immortality. Because when a universally beloved Oscar-winning icon violently strikes his leading lady on camera just to force a reaction, is it method acting? Or is it documented assault? Behind the glitter, the scars remain. Welcome to Hollywood Stars and Scars. Number 20, Will Smith and Janet Hubert. In the early 90s, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air presented an image of sitcom perfection. Will Smith was the undeniable golden child with meteoric star power, while Janet Hubert served as the regal matriarch of a television empire. On screen, their dynamic was impeccably branded, securing massive ratings and endless applause. Behind closed doors, the set devolved into a battleground of egos and alleged toxicity. As the young star's influence expanded, rumors of a fractured relationship bled into the press. Hubert openly branded her co-star an egomaniac, blaming him for ruining her career, while he implied she was envious of his rise. The studio ultimately protected their leading man, triggering a sudden recasting that shattered the illusion. The fallout was absolute. Hubert found herself isolated and effectively blacklisted, her reputation dismantled by the very machine she helped build. The show survived the shift without a public stutter, leaving behind a legacy shadowed by decades of resentment. In Hollywood, familial warmth is easily severed the moment the camera stops rolling. Number 19, Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte. By the mid-90s, Julia Roberts reigned as America's sweetheart, armed with an unrivaled box office dominance. Paired with Nick Nolte, a rugged leading man commanding intense critical acclaim, the casting felt like an undeniable blockbuster recipe. The studio banked heavily on their combined magnetism, projecting a flawless romantic illusion across endless glossy magazine covers. Once cameras began rolling on I Love Trouble, that highly publicized chemistry immediately curdled into deep-rooted hostility. Insiders described an environment suffocated by extreme tension, with the stars actively despised sharing a frame. A devastating PR crisis was quietly brewing as their mutual disdain fractured the entire production schedule. Decades later, the bitter reality of their feud remains etched in tabloid history. Roberts publicly dismissed her co-star as utterly disgusting, while Nolte fiercely retaliated, branding her as someone who is, fundamentally, not a nice person. The manufactured on-screen romance dissolved into a permanent public grudge. In a town built on fabricated perfection, the most enduring legacy of a forced love story is often the genuine hatred it leaves behind. Number 18, William Shatner and George Takei. Orbiting the heights of a cultural phenomenon, the crew of the Starship Enterprise represented a utopian vision of unity to millions. William Shatner commanded the screen as the boldly confident captain, while George Takei brought dignified precision to the helm. Together they were immortalized in syndication as a flawless intergalactic brotherhood. Away from the studio lights, a bitter reality fractured that futuristic idealism. Tensions ignited over undeniable vanity, birthing a toxic environment masked by forced press tour smiles. The quiet resentment slowly morphed into a public spectacle, fueled by leaked grievances and sharp media interviews. Takei repeatedly dismantled his former captain's public image, explicitly targeting Shatner's massive ego and self-serving behavior. What began as a professional rivalry calcified into a relentless, decades-long feud of traded sarcasm. Instead of celebrating a shared legacy, both men found themselves locked in a destructive cycle of fame, continuously tearing down the mythos they helped construct. For devoted audiences, the harshest reality is discovering that heroes who navigated the cosmos could barely survive a shared soundstage. Number 17. Debbie Reynolds and Gene Kelly. During the apex of the studio system, Gene Kelly stood as a cinematic titan, wielding absolute creative power. Paired with teenage Debbie Reynolds, an effervescent ingenue tapped for superstardom, the duo was engineered to deliver pure magic. Their legendary on-screen chemistry projected a flawless, rain-soaked euphoria that defined a golden era. Beneath the glittering Technicolor surface, the soundstage functioned as a psychological pressure cooker. Driven by a ruthless pursuit of perfection, Kelly enforced a notoriously brutal schedule. He relentlessly pushed Reynolds to the brink of complete physical and mental exhaustion, demanding agonizing retakes that shattered her confidence. A devastating reality lurked behind the upbeat choreography, transforming a joyful set into a grueling marathon. The polished final cut permanently buried the trauma required to capture it. While audiences marveled at a masterpiece of cinematic joy, the severe human cost was quietly locked away in the studio vault. Behind the brightest smiles of classic Hollywood, the price of immortal perfection is often paid in hidden agony. Number 16. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Vin Diesel. For over a decade, an adrenaline-fueled blockbuster franchise marketed itself on an unbreakable core value: family. Anchored by the gravity of Vin Diesel and amplified by Dwayne Johnson's immense star power, this cinematic empire shattered global box office records. Their combined muscular charisma dominated red carpets, projecting a united, multi-billion-dollar brotherhood to legions of fans. That meticulously constructed illusion collapsed the moment a calculated social media post targeted a prominent co-star's professionalism. Industry insiders watched as Johnson publicly condemned a toxic work ethic, exposing deep fractures over differing creative visions. A devastating PR crisis instantly consumed the studio, turning a fiercely protected marketing narrative into a frantic damage control operation. The impenetrable facade of loyalty had cracked under the weight of colliding egos. The fallout birthed a heavily disputed legacy and an undeniable Cold War, forcing producers to film crucial scenes with the stars entirely isolated. The feud permanently dismantled the on-screen chemistry that built the action universe, leaving behind a deeply divided ensemble. In a Hollywood empire built on dominance, the most destructive wreckage often comes from within. Number 15. Kim Cattrall and Sarah Jessica Parker. At the turn of the millennium, four stylish women navigating Manhattan entirely redefined television history. Sarah Jessica Parker and Kim Cattrall anchored a cultural juggernaut that sold global audiences the ultimate fantasy of unbreakable sisterhood. Their collective red carpet appearances were masterclasses in perfect branding, masking any off-camera friction with designer couture and synchronized smiles. The polished veneer shattered violently when long-buried animosity finally spilled onto public feeds. Dispensing with polite PR denials, Cattrall outright branded her leading co-star as utterly cruel, dropping a bombshell revelation that the beloved ensemble were never actually friends. A devastating media crisis swallowed the franchise as tabloids feasted on the bitter dismantling of their manufactured camaraderie. This undeniable fracture permanently altered the show's lucrative universe. When a highly anticipated reboot materialized, Cattrall decisively walked away from the empire, refusing to reunite with the original cast. the sparkling illusion of Manhattan's most famous friendships dissolved into a cold, permanent estrangement. Behind television's most intoxicating portrayals of loyalty lies a hidden graveyard of sustained, quiet resentment.
Number 14. Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni.
Blake Lively, a glittering icon of fashion and curated elegance, teamed up with Justin Baldoni, a charismatic director-actor known for emotionally resonant storytelling. Anticipation for their highly publicized cinematic adaptation hit a fever pitch. Red carpets were expected to be a triumphant display of unified star power perfectly packaged for a massive fan base. That meticulously planned promotional tour rapidly dissolved into a whispering campaign of undeniable friction. Industry observers quickly noticed a glaring absence of joint interviews, fueling intense speculation of severe creative clashes behind the scenes. A devastating PR crisis ignited as rumors of fractured visions and isolated marketing strategies bled into the mainstream press. The final film reached theaters under a heavy cloud of alleged animosity. The absolute public silence between the two leads spoke louder than any carefully worded studio denial. The stylized romance they sold on screen was eclipsed by the freezing tension of their media rollout. In an industry obsessed with selling love stories, the most captivating drama is usually the silent divorce playing out behind the promotional curtain.
Number 13. Tyrese Gibson and James Franco.
During the mid-2000s, James Franco cemented his status as an intense method actor, while Tyrese Gibson rapidly transitioned from a music sensation to a bankable star. Cast together in a Naval Academy drama, their pairing was promoted as a clash of rising titans. The studio banked on their contrasting charisma, promising audiences a gripping spectacle of youthful ambition. When filming commenced, the boundaries between performance and reality violently disintegrated. Reports indicated that Franco's extreme commitment to his role led to unscripted physical altercations during boxing sequences. He repeatedly landed legitimate punches on Gibson, ignoring established fight choreography and transforming a controlled set into a hostile environment. The meticulously crafted narrative of a professional collaboration shattered under this unchecked intensity. The fallout birthed an enduring, highly public resentment. Gibson explicitly confirmed the hostility, drawing a permanent boundary by declaring he would never work with his former co-star again. In an industry that demands fabricated conflict, the most permanent scars are forged when a performance bleeds into actual malice.
Number 12. John Leguizamo and Steven Seagal.
In the mid-90s, Steven Seagal reigned as an untouchable titan of the action genre, commanding massive box office returns with a signature martial arts mystique. Cast alongside rising character actor John Leguizamo in a high-stakes thriller, the ensemble was marketed as a seamless blend of heavyweight brawn and dynamic talent. Their combined presence on glossy posters projected an image of absolute cinematic authority. Once confined to the rehearsal space, that illusion of professional discipline evaporated in a single volatile instant. When Leguizamo let out a brief, unscripted laugh, the reaction was swift and disproportionate. Reports confirmed the martial arts star forcefully shoved his co-star against a solid brick wall, weaponizing physical intimidation to punish a minor slight. The shocking altercation immediately suffocated the production in fear, permanently fracturing the set's dynamic. Leguizamo was left breathless and humiliated, stripped of his professional dignity, while the studio machine kept rolling forward. In an industry that worships unchecked power, the most brutal blows are often delivered long before the cameras even start rolling.
Number 11. Casey Wilson and Tim Allen.
For decades, Tim Allen anchored the box office as a universally adored comedic patriarch. His signature brand of family-friendly humor built a lucrative television empire, securing his status as an untouchable seasonal icon. Executives relentlessly capitalized on this warm persona, projecting an unbreakable illusion of festive cheer across endless promotional campaigns. Upon returning for the Santa Clauses, that carefully curated jovial image rapidly unraveled behind the scenes. Casey Wilson publicly shattered the seasonal magic, exposing an incredibly stressful set dominated by her co-star's condescending demeanor. Reports detailed a grueling atmosphere where Alan's dismissive behavior replaced holiday warmth with a suffocating, hostile work environment. This beloved franchise's legacy is now permanently shadowed by these stark revelations of unchecked arrogance. Wilson's confession proved that a manufactured media darling can operate with absolute impunity. Behind Hollywood's most comforting holiday traditions, the most enduring gift a powerful leading man leaves his peers is often quiet, lasting humiliation. A production set is uniquely engineered to isolate its inhabitants from reality. When immense power is concentrated in a protected individual, a collaborative workspace instantly morphs into a psychological pressure cooker. Society is conditioned to excuse this hostility as mere artistic passion or intense method acting. Yet systemic workplace intimidation thrives on collective silence. Whenever volatile behavior is rewarded with box office dominance, an industry quietly trains its people to absorb emotional damage as a standard occupational hazard. The true cost of entertainment is paid by those forced to smile through the abuse. Sometimes the most profound damage stems not from a loud ego, but from a chilling disregard for human boundaries. Number 10. Alexa Nicholas and Jamie Lynn Spears. During the golden age of teen television, Zoe 101 projected a sun-drenched utopia of elite boarding school life. Anchored by Jamie Lynn Spears, a teen royalty icon with immense network backing, the series sold millions of young viewers on a picture-perfect Californian dream. The young cast was meticulously branded as an inseparable, carefree group of friends living out a televised fantasy. Once the director called cut, that brightly lit facade dissolved into a deeply toxic reality. Alexa Nicholas eventually shattered the show's immaculate PR narrative, publicly exposing a suffocating culture of relentless intimidation. She explicitly accused her powerful co-star of orchestrating a systemic bullying environment, stripping away the manufactured innocence of the hit series. The fallout permanently tainted the network's lucrative teen empire, forcing executives to silently bury the ugly truth behind closed studio doors. What was marketed as an idyllic adolescence was actually a psychological gauntlet for its young supporting cast. In the unforgiving machinery of youth programming, the brightest teenage dreams are often built on the quiet nightmares of the unprotected. Number 9. Rebel Wilson and Sacha Baron Cohen. By the mid-2000s, Rebel Wilson emerged as a universally adored comedic force. Paired with Sacha Baron Cohen, a titan of boundary-pushing satire, their collaboration was aggressively marketed as a guaranteed box office triumph. The studio projected an image of two fearless heavyweights joining forces, promising audiences an unforgettable spectacle of raucous cinematic brilliance. Behind the safety of the promotional poster, the dynamic on the set of The Brothers Grimsby allegedly devolved into a deeply distressing ordeal. Wilson eventually shattered the silence, publicly accusing her influential co-star of relentlessly pressuring her to perform acts that severely violated her personal boundaries. A devastating PR crisis unfolded as she detailed an environment where comedy was allegedly weaponized to force compromising situations. This stark revelation permanently altered the film's legacy, exposing the severe psychological toll often demanded in the pursuit of outrageous entertainment. Behind the most celebrated comedic moments in cinema, the true punchline
is often the quiet erosion of a star's personal dignity. Number 8. Nicolette Sheridan and Terry Hatcher. During the mid-2000s, Desperate Housewives became an unstoppable cultural obsession, selling a pristine vision of suburban perfection masked by glamorous intrigue. Nicolette Sheridan and Terry Hatcher anchored the immaculate ensemble, parading across endless red carpets in synchronized elegance. Millions of viewers were entirely captivated by this glossy illusion of bonded neighborhood sisterhood. Once the cameras stopped rolling, the reality of Wisteria Lane was allegedly suffocated by toxic rivalries. The pristine marketing narrative violently unraveled when severe behind-the-scenes conflicts bled into the mainstream press. Sheridan completely dismantled the carefully protected PR facade, reportedly confronting the show's creator to declare Hatcher the absolute meanest woman in the world. A devastating media crisis consumed the production as bitter off-screen reality dominated the headlines. The undeniable fallout permanently scarred the legacy of this smash-hit drama. The polished suburban fantasy evaporated, replaced by an enduring reputation of unchecked backstage hostility. Beneath the manicured perfection of primetime television, the darkest secrets are often vicious wars fought by women forced to smile together. Number 7. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano. At the height of late 90s supernatural television, Charmed cast a lucrative spell over global audiences. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano stood at the center of this magical empire, projecting an empowering narrative of absolute sisterly devotion. Their combined star power graced countless magazine covers, selling a fiercely protected image of female solidarity, wrapped in glossy aesthetics and massive network ratings. Beyond the reach of the studio lights, that enchanting mythology rapidly curdled into a suffocating nightmare. McGowan ultimately detonated the show's pristine reputation, publicly exposing a deeply toxic atmosphere orchestrated behind closed doors. She explicitly accused her powerful co-star of throwing relentless tantrums, deliberately manufacturing a hostile work environment that terrorized the production. The fiercely guarded illusion of a magical family violently splintered under the weight of these staggering allegations. This undeniable media fracture permanently dismantled the legacy of the hit fantasy drama. What executives meticulously marketed as an unbreakable bond was actually a grueling psychological battlefield. Behind Hollywood's most celebrated portrayals of unity, the darkest spells are usually cast when the cameras stop rolling. Number 6. Lucy Liu and Bill Murray. At the dawn of the millennium, a massive cinematic reboot promised the ultimate vision of blockbuster empowerment. Lucy Liu was rapidly ascending as a captivating leading lady, while comedy veteran Bill Murray brought his untouchable gravitas to the project. The studio meticulously marketed this vibrant ensemble as a flawless family. Behind the stylized explosions, the soundstage harbored a volatile atmosphere. The pristine promotional narrative cracked when reports leaked of a severe confrontation during rehearsals. Refusing to be diminished, Liu fiercely stood her ground, directly confronting her co-star over remarks she condemned as entirely inexcusable and unacceptable. A devastating PR crisis instantly consumed the set as rumors bled into the press. The immediate fallout permanently altered the lucrative franchise, resulting in a sudden recasting for the sequel. While the movie secured massive box office triumph, the reality of backstage hostility remained a dark stain on its legacy. Beneath the slick veneer of manufactured cinematic empowerment, the most genuinely heroic act is often surviving the cruelty of a celebrated icon. Number 5. Suicide Squad cast and Jared Leto. A highly anticipated anti-hero blockbuster promised to redefine the comic book genre. Jared Leto, an Academy Award-winning talent celebrated for his immersive transformations, was cast as the ultimate chaotic villain.
The studio relentlessly hyped this unprecedented ensemble, aggressively marketing a gritty, neon-soaked cinematic revolution that dominated every pop culture conversation.
When pre-production commenced, the boundary between performance and professional etiquette completely dissolved. Embracing a severely unchecked version of method acting, Leto subjected his bewildered co-stars to a relentless campaign of psychological pressure. Reports detailed a deeply uncomfortable work environment where bizarre, macabre gifts were routinely delivered to the cast, transforming a highly structured set into a landscape of genuine unease. The theatrical release was immediately overshadowed by this off-screen mythology, generating a polarizing media spectacle that quietly alienated the ensemble. Much of his controversial performance was notoriously excised from the final cut, leaving behind a heavily disputed legacy. In an industry that relentlessly romanticizes tortured genius, the line between artistic commitment and workplace intimidation is often terrifyingly thin. Number 4. Samantha Marie Ware and Lea Michele. At the apex of a musical television phenomenon, Lea Michele stood as the undisputed powerhouse of an inclusive cultural empire. Belted anthems and synchronized solos propelled her to the absolute pinnacle of primetime television. The studio built a pristine promotional machine around her undeniable vocal talent, selling audiences an uplifting fantasy of underdog triumph and unbreakable camaraderie. That meticulously curated image violently unraveled when a single social media post dismantled her reign. Samantha Marie Ware shattered a long-held silence, publicly accusing the leading lady of weaponizing her status to transform a breakout role into an absolute living hell. A devastating PR crisis instantly erupted as a flood of corroborating testimonies exposed a systemic pattern of backstage cruelty and unchecked entitlement. The immediate fallout swiftly dismantled lucrative endorsement deals, permanently tainting the joyous legacy of the hit series. A carefully drafted public apology failed to salvage the shattered illusion of her marketable perfection. Beneath television's most celebrated anthems of acceptance, the most enduring chorus is often the silent suffering of the unprotected. Number 3. Many People and Chevy Chase. For decades, Chevy Chase reigned as untouchable comedy royalty. An architect of late-night television who commanded absolute reverence. Joining a beloved community college ensemble, his casting was hailed as a brilliant masterstroke. He shared the screen with Donald Glover, an ascending talent whose kinetic energy quickly became the show's magnetic core. The network aggressively marketed this dynamic, selling viewers a heartwarming narrative of a bonded, chosen family. Behind the study room doors that curated warmth decayed into an atmosphere of sustained hostility. The pristine comedy facade cracked when reports exposed a relentless pattern of highly offensive racist remarks deliberately weaponized against Glover. A devastating PR crisis consumed the production, as the comedy legend was publicly unmasked as a verbally abusive figure who habitually insulted his peers. The undeniable fallout forced his sudden exit, permanently dismantling a legendary legacy. While Glover skyrocketed to unprecedented global superstardom, his former co-star was left effectively isolated. In an industry that fiercely protects its comedic titans, the most brutal punchline is often the self-inflicted destruction of an untouchable icon. Number 2. Meryl Streep and Dustin Hoffman. In the late 70s, a prestige family drama promised audiences a cinematic masterpiece of raw emotion. Dustin Hoffman held the industry's absolute respect as a brilliant leading man, while Meryl Streep was rapidly ascending as a generational talent. The studio marketed their pairing as an acting masterclass, projecting an image of dedicated artists collaborating on a deeply moving narrative. Once cameras rolled, that pristine professional facade twisted into a deeply invasive ordeal. Reports confirmed the established star weaponized his co-star's devastating real-life grief, intentionally taunting Streep about her recently deceased partner to artificially provoke a breakdown. This psychological pressure culminated in a shocking, unscripted escalation when he delivered a forceful slap across her face during a pivotal take. The resulting footage captured massive critical acclaim, perfectly burying the agonizing reality required to achieve it. Streep eventually exposed this toxic environment, dismantling the dangerous myth that artistic genius excuses workplace hostility. Behind Hollywood's most celebrated cinematic victories, the heaviest price for immortality is often the quiet trauma inflicted by an untouchable icon. Number 1. Sophia Loren and Marlon Brando. During the height of international cinema, Sophia Loren was revered as an untouchable goddess of Italian glamour. Paired with Marlon Brando, the brooding heavyweight of American method acting, their collaboration promised a masterpiece of cross-cultural magnetism. Studios fiercely promoted this pairing, plastering their striking faces across global billboards to sell an intoxicating fantasy of romance. Beneath the elegant costumes and manicured lighting, the atmosphere on set abruptly shattered due to severe professional misconduct. Loren fiercely dismantled the manufactured chemistry when she explicitly confronted her legendary co-star over uninvited physical boundaries being crossed. The protected production descended into a silent battleground as she delivered a blistering warning, refusing to tolerate his unchecked entitlement. This defiant stand proved that undeniable star power often masks a troubling lack of basic respect. While the final film projected a seamless narrative, the reality of their fractured dynamic became a permanent fixture of industry lore. Behind the alluring mystique of classic cinema, the most powerful performance is often a woman successfully defending her dignity against a celebrated icon. These archived Hollywood scandals reveal more than industry cruelty. They expose human beings shattering under the crushing weight of manufactured perfection. True survival isn't about enduring toxic genius. It demands the profound courage to walk away, prioritizing sanity over a lethal illusion. As we close this dossier on Hollywood stars and scars, look past the fading glamour. The fame is fabricated, but the trauma they carry is devastatingly real. When the blinding flashbulbs die and the applause hollows out, the greatest performances are the terrified silences kept off camera. The industry doesn't merely manufacture dreams. It meticulously archives the psychological nightmares it engineered. To unseal the next locked vault of buried Hollywood scandals, subscribe to Hollywood Stars and Scars. Join our investigation as we decode the redacted truths the studios spent millions trying to erase from history. Because for every star immortalized on the pavement, a permanent scar is left in the shadows.